And good evening, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, Canada, right on the shores of Lake Erie. If you would like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradio, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. Once again, that's xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And for the listing of all the shows we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for the X-Zone TV channel listing on SimulTV, just go to simultv.com. First of all, before I get to my very special guest of this hour, I would like to take this opportunity of wishing you and all your families a very happy Thanksgiving. Now, Thanksgiving here in Canada was last month, but you know, we have so many wonderful friends and listeners in the United States and the U.S. territories that without wishing you a happy Thanksgiving just would not make my year complete. And you, the X-Zone Nation, for the last 30 years, that's exactly what you've done. January 18, 2020, the 30th anniversary of this show, the X-Zone Radio TV show, as well as the very first publication of the X Chronicles newspaper. So thank you very much, X-Zone Nation, for helping us grow and get the message out there that fact is stranger than fiction. Wonderful. Thank you so much, X-Zone Nation. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show a couple of times. His name is T.D. Barnes. He is an author and entrepreneur. He grew up on a ranch at Dalhart, Texas. He graduated from Mountain View High School in Oklahoma and embarked on a 10-year military career. He served as an Army intelligence specialist in Korea and then continued his education while in the U.S. Army, attending 2.5 years of missile and radar electronics by day and college courses at night. TD deployed with the 1st Combat Hawk Missile Battalion during the Soviet-Iran Curtain threat before attending the Artillery Officer Candidate School, where an injury ended his military career. Now, during his extensive professional career, TD was a field engineer at the NASA High Range in Nevada for the X-15, XB-70 lifting bodies and lunar landing vehicles, working on the NERVA project at Jackass Flats, Nevada. He was a member of the Special Projects team at Area 51 for the Central Intelligence Agency. TD later formed a family oil and gas exploration company, drilling and producing oil and gas and mining uranium and gold. Talk about an entrepreneur, my lord. TD is currently the CEO of Startel, Inc., a landowner, and is actively mining a quarry for landscape rock and gold in Nevada. He is the president of Roadrunners Internationale, an association of Area 51 veterans, and is the executive director of the Nevada Aerospace Hall of Fame. 2 National Geographic Channel documentaries feature TD, Area 51 Declassified and CIA, Secrets of Area 51. Also, numerous documentaries on the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, and others also feature him. The Annie Jacobsen book, Area 51 Declassified, documents his career. TD lives in Henderson, Nevada. Joining me now is the entrepreneur of all times. That's all I can say, TD, is T.D. Barnes. And TD, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah.
TD, where do you find all the time, my friend? Man, you're so busy.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at delegating jobs and stuff, so it makes my job pretty easy.
So that's the secret, delegating the different jobs to other people and just overlooking everything, that everything gets done right.
You just find me where I'm needed to be.
Ah.
If you don't see me, it means you're doing your job right.
TD, great having you with us. Now, what we did earlier this afternoon, TD, because we knew you were coming on, we sent a notice to the members of the X-Zone Nation asking them if they had any questions that they would like to ask you, because every time you're on the show, we get nothing but listeners from all over the world ask us to thank you the next time you're on the show for coming on the show and helping to remove the veil of secrecy from something that I believe, TD, really isn't secret after all. So here's a couple of the questions for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. This one is from a gentleman in Nevada. He says, do you still stand by the comments you made about Annie Jacobsen that you wrote years ago?
Absolutely, yes. We put it this way, we do not exchange Christmas cards.
Oh, you don't? Now, would you mind if I sent you a Christmas card?
Yeah, it'd be welcome.
All right. Now, here's another one. This one is from Anchorage, Alaska. What do you think of the claims of Bob Lazar? Are they true or are they false?
They're false, completely false.
Okay. This one here is from Atlanta, Georgia. If there's such a worldwide UFO cover-up, why does Israel's Mossad not care about this subject? And why aren't they all over the secret UFO Roswell medals or what's known now as arts parts?
I wasn't aware that Israel was involved in it that much.
No. The question is, if there's such a worldwide UFO cover-up, like the UFO community says, Stephen Bassett and
okay.
the TTSA and Doug DeLong and crew, if there is this cover-up, why doesn't the Mossad care about this?
First of all, I'm not aware of any cover-up. There's always been stories, that cover up on this, the moon landing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And first, I think if there was one, it'd be burst wide open by Israel or the United States or anyone would bust it right open.
I use this analogy. If the President of the United States cannot have a sexual encounter of an oral kind in the White House, the most secure building in the entire world, without the world knowing months later, how in the name of heaven are you going to hide a crashed UFO and dead and living aliens? I mean, other than the ones that come from Mexico.
Absolutely. If they really had a crash, that's all the media would be talking about.
Sure.
And people would be by the millions trying to get to the crash site or anything like that. You just don't. You got a select few that believes in that, but put it this way: you don't see people standing outside at night looking for UFOs.
No, that is so true. And TD, I've been doing this show for 30 years. Come next month, and nothing has changed within the UFO community, or the Bigfoot community, or the ghosts, or the Loch Ness Monster. Everything hasn't changed except the different people who are getting involved because of their access to the internet. So, people say, well, Rob, if that is your feeling, why do you keep doing your show? Well, it's very simple. I want to believe. If it's out there, prove it to me. It's that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep a broad mind on it. There's
sure.
No reason to shut it out.
Yeah. All right, this one here is from Kingston, Jamaica. All right, this is with reference to Harry Reid. Does it make any sense to you to spend $22 million in taxpayer money to study UFOs, giving it to his friend and donor when all Reid had to do was ask the CIA or Air Force what the truth was about UFOs?
Yeah, that's kind of a touchy subject. Just put it this way, he's not one of my favorite people.
So you don't exchange Christmas cards with him either?
No, I think someone lined their pockets really nicely with $22 million.
Yeah, I guess so. Have you ever talked to? Have you ever asked? I'm sorry.
Supposedly that money went to someone to store crashed alien vehicles.
I see.
What crashed alien vehicle?
Exactly. I've got about a minute and a half before we have to take our break, TD. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here. I've only got one or two questions left that the listeners had sent in. We only took about 6 out of about 400 questions. So what website can our listeners find out more about you and the Hall of Fame and everything else? What's the best website?
For the Hall of Fame, it'd be www.NVAHOF, Nevada Aerospace Hall of Fame.
That's NVHOL.com?
NVAHOF.
NEAHOF.
I can say. that.
Okay. And that would be the best one to promote. Okay, TD, please stand by. Thank you so much for
Sure.
coming on the show tonight. And to you and your family, a very happy Thanksgiving from everyone here.
Well, thank you very much.
Stand by, sir. All right, Exo Nation, TD Barnes and I return on the other side of this commercial break as we continue to investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology and all facts and stories in between. Just remember this, Exo Nation, not everything you read on the internet is true. In my opinion, the internet is the largest septic tank that man has ever created because there's more crap in it than there is anything else. Don't go away. And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. TD Barnes is our very special guest this hour. Before I get back to TD, I would just like to remind you that what we are doing here at Relmar McConnell Media Company, the parent company of everything we do, is we are paying forward in a very unique way. We are offering to any one of you listening out there around the world who would like a one-time, 1-hour radio show for your very own to discuss ways of helping humanity, helping the homeless, helping clean up the messes in the oceans, anything that will help people, whether it's spiritual, whether it's an invention, or whether it's just your heart feeling on how you want to make the world feel better. We will give you a one-time, 1-hour radio show that we are going to be putting on a brand new network that we formed just for this idea called For the People Broadcast Network. There is no cost whatsoever. We will produce your show. We will edit it. We will put it up on all the media platforms. We will put it in our archives. We will make sure that your show gets airplayed at least 30 times in the first month. No catch whatsoever. We will also give you a full-page ad in the X Chronicles newspaper. No catches, no cost to you whatsoever. This is our way of trying to pay it forward for all the help and all the people that we've had over these past 30 years who've helped us to get the message across that we try and do so desperately each and every night here in the X-Zone. Nothing has changed in my heart since I started this airing of this show 30 years ago to make a positive difference in one person's heart each and every night. So from me, my wife, the members of the Relmar McConnell Media Company, and all our affiliates, all our subsidiaries, thank you. Thank you for helping us to get where we are today so that we can bring the messages, the truth to you, the listeners, with having guests like my guest tonight, TD Barnes. And TD, always great talking to you. When we were during the commercial break, I was chuckling about what you said about, sending Annie Jacobsen a Christmas card. How different was what you said to her in the book compared to what was actually published?
She was go ahead, sorry.
No, sir.
She was fairly accurate throughout most of the book. She interviewed the people, and it was. We thought we were going to have a great book. That would be, you might say, the Bible on what happened at Area 51. And then she decided that something would sell better. She added the bit about the aliens and all that kind of stuff, and she just totally threw us under the bus. And when she on the last chapter, the rest of it was good. We had no problem with that. But of course she made a few million off of it by putting that kind of stuff out there.
So when she was talking to you and the other fine members who served the people at Area 51 and other locations, around the world protecting democracy, freedom, and the American way of life, no one mentioned aliens, no one mentioned ETs, no one mentioned crashed UFOs?
Not at all. In fact, what really hurt us, we took her back to CIA and in CIA headquarters and let her tour that, and we did a 10-day, you might say a legacy tour, where we went to all the agencies in Washington, all the, the DIA, CIA, you name it, and she got to tag along, and we were getting panel discussions. Like we're talking tonight, this is something that once the CIA started declassifying this stuff, they wanted us out. So
sure.
We do talks at universities and places like that, just to get the story out there, what really went on at Area 51 while the CIA was there. And anyway, she got to see all of that. We introduced her to the commanders and, a lot of top people. And then all that went well until she got the last chapter when she decided that we were modifying handicapped children out there and all that kind of stuff.
Lord.
And she's still saying that's what really. I listened to her the other day, and she was telling how we would take handicapped children out to Area 51 and modify them, and put them and then put them in a craft and let it crash somewhere and make the Russians or one thing to something that's out of space.
Based on the extensive knowledge you have as a contractor for a former contractor for the CIA, having worked extensively at Area 51 on such great projects as the X-15 and the XB-70, I believe.
Right.
Where did the myth about UFOs ever come from, and the myth of the crashed craft and the reverse engineering? Where did this come from?
I can tell you exactly. CIA is one that formed Area 51, and everyone that worked out there, including the Air Force, worked for the CIA. And then they started in 1955. 1979, the CIA turned it over to the Air Force. Up until that point, no one had ever heard of Area 51. There was no UFO stories or anything. The minute the Air Force took over, the word got out there was the Area 51, and then everybody's imagination started running wild. What in the world has the CIA been doing for 20 years that we don't know about? And that's where the UFO stuff started. Of course, we couldn't deny it or confirm it. We just had
Certainly.
to take it, and that's what started it.
To your knowledge, what do you think happened, or if you can even talk about it, what do you think happened in 1947 at Roswell, New Mexico?
I think it was probably a balloon project, more or less like they've talked about, or even some kind of a prototype. We were back then. Northrop was already experimenting with the flying wing, and it's a possibility that we crashed a prototype or something there, but we've never believed that it was a saucer or anything like that.
Something that's been very popular these days on the internet, as the gun camera footage that was taken by a craft from the Nimitz, and how this all led up to the article being written by the New York Times and then Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy and that crew. I'm sure you've seen the footage.
Yeah.
Okay, now this is what I believe it is. Okay, and then if you'd like to comment on it, that would be great. I believe that what they photographed was an experimental craft or a top secret craft that had been under development by the U.S. on a project that was totally high security, highly classified, and it was being tested. And I believe that the part of the story that is not getting out there is that there were parts of the U.S. Navy that knew exactly what was going on. That's what I believe it is.
Yeah, I've got a pretty strong theory on this myself. This is speculation, but first of all, it came from just one Navy system, a new system that they were trying out. And first of all, I think that the video was probably leaked, and it embarrassed them. And but it's not, in 1960, that's where I first got involved with the CIA. We were getting ready to develop the A-12 out at Area 51, a Mark III plane, to replace the U-2. And we knew that the Soviet Union, the radar, Russia had a new radar, the Tall King. And we need to know if it would be able to track the A-12 and shoot it down. And they moved one to Cuba. And so Project Palladium, this is declassified.
Right.
CIA initiated Project Palladium, where we had a ghost plane flying, full electronics, would fly it at Cuba, and they turn on the radar, and we created a ghost plane, or maybe 20 ghost planes, electronic planes, would answer their radar. But then we'd have a submarine out in the ocean that would release balloons of different sizes that had metallic cubes in them, and we were trying to determine the strength of the radar. How small stuff can it track, and that sort of thing. And but even in the 1960s, we were spoofing radar, and I think that's exactly what happened here. Is they were testing this new system they got. Let's see if it will work, and they used some of their spoofing on it, and the spoofing worked.
Yeah,
it was picking up stuff because we know we electronically create ships and create planes all day long. That's no telling what you can do now, because we did that back in 1960.
But creating an electronic image that would turn up on the radar of the aircraft carrier group as well as on the fighters, how would the electronic image create something that the pilots would actually capture on their gun cameras? Now, just think about that for a sec. We're going to be back after this commercial break. Exonation, my guest this hour, T.D. Barnes, and I will return talking more about the CIA Area 51 and much more. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. T.D. Barnes is my special guest. His website is nvahof.org. Now, in the previous segment, T.D. was talking about the Project Palladium, and Craig was able to dig something up on it. In 1960, when the Soviet Union moved a Tall King radar system to Cuba, the CIA began covertly using palladium to trick Russian air defense radars into thinking unidentified aircraft were flying towards them, and even into Cuban airspace. As one of the few members of Palladium team, T.D. Barnes served as Air Defense Artillery, ADA, and Electromagnetic Countermeasures Officer for the classified program. Okay, T.D., I can understand the sending of electronic signals in order to trick the radar, but how would they get the footage of what was later called a tic-tac?
Okay, this is a good question, and I'm not sure I've got the answer on it either.
Okay.
But we know that now we're into swarm technology, where they use swarms of reflectors and what have you to confuse the enemy. Have a whole fleet of ships or planes and stuff. So the fact that they're able to lock onto it is confusing. You know, they seem to lock on it with their radar.
Right.
However, their force or no one else has seen these.
Right. That's an excellent point I brought up to a number of people, and they can't answer it. Something else that I brought up was I think it's the weakness in their. Yeah.
And that it's a new system that they've got.
Right.
And I think this is limited just to the Navy's this latest system they got, and no one else. And we've seen this. This is something that we did out at Area 51. We was all the time testing other, even our own, but the enemy and our own technology to see if we could spoof it and play games with it. So
Sure.
this is something that is standard. And I just think that the Navy has got a problem there on this latest system they got, and they're going to have to work it out.
Yeah, something else that I am confused by is if this, all right, hypothetically, if this is a real UFO instead of a UAP, unidentified flying object from another planet, the fact that it broke through our planetary defense system, you know, our satellite defense system and everything, would this not have raised alarms right around the world?
It should have, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, we're tracking stuff in space that's, you know, the size of a 5-gallon bucket. We're picking up on radar, anything in orbit, and so I don't think anything could come in like that. So, and the fact that none of our systems picked it up except the Navy on those particular carriers at that particular time. And so I think it still is something very localized.
Yeah. Something else that people say is that if this was a black op project, it would have shown up somewhere in a budget. I disagree with them. I believe, TD, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if the government wants to hide something and they like doing things compartmentalized so that no one else knows what anybody else is doing, I think that it would be very easy for them to come up with a black budget for something like this that would not be able to be tracked.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like CIA, we always had we did not require vouchers. In other words, you could carry $5 million around in a bucket and hand it out any way you wanted to. You didn't have to account for it, and that's what we did. You know, in country stuff. And but you know, a good example of this is the Aurora. You know, everybody talked about the Aurora all this year. Well, you know what happened there is they did see a proof of concept platform that we were testing out at the area. And someone got to looking on the books and saw where money had been appropriated for a project called Aurora. So, you know, they put 2 and 2 together, and that's what they were seeing was the Aurora.
Wow.
The truth is, the Aurora was nothing but wanting to build a B-2 bomber. They got way, way over budget. So the only way they could finish the B-2 bomber was create another project to appropriate funds under. Wow. So they came up with a project called Aurora, and had to appropriate funds that they actually use on the B-2 bomber.
Another example of how things get taken out of proportion in the UFO community is that you know about Pegasus launches. I know about Pegasus launches. But there are so many people, and I'm talking about some of the top people who claim to be experts in the UFO field, have never heard of a Pegasus launch.
Yeah, I know it. Exactly.
You know, the best example that I give of a Pegasus launch was the launching of the X-15. You know, and why people cannot understand that, number one, if you're looking at something you don't know what the heck you're looking at, it's just part of a puzzle. I, for one, feel that my need to know what the government is doing in order to protect me, I don't need to know it. I really don't. I don't think that I have the right to question how my government or any other government that works in conjunction with any other government to maintain world peace We don't need to know. Like
there's something that we're talking about. Use stealth for example.
Mm-hmm.
Stealth doesn't work necessarily by itself. There's a lot of other background stuff that's going on in along with your stealth. And the only F-117
Mm-hmm.
that ever got shot down is because the system was down that supports the stealth. And we just got a lot of stuff that we deploy on the battlefield if we had to confuse the enemy, and just like what I was talking about on palladium. And there's just stuff out there we just don't have any idea what it is.
What did you think about the storming of Area 51 a couple of months ago?
Yeah, Fox News called me on that the minute they started talking about it, and wanted me to say why they shouldn't. I said, well, the first thing, besides, someone getting hurt out there or getting captured, I said, it's not going to be trespass. Mm-hmm. They go in there and say, if they're on foot, they might put them in jail, but if they're in a vehicle, they're going to blow them away.
Right.
That doesn't work anymore. But I said the biggest thing of it is going to be the lawsuits. I said, all the people coming out there, whoever organized this, whoever approves the permits, anyone who gets hurt is going to sue the dickens out of them, and that's exactly what happened. The lawyers lined up right now. We got lawsuits going like crazy, and that's what I predicted. I said, the people they think it's fun and games, but wait till they really start doing it. A lot of liability comes out of something like that.
Yeah, it boggles me why people look at a sign that says no trespassing and they still want to go through because they think they know the truth. And they know very little at all. Another hot topic in the news, TD, that I'd like to get your opinion on is Doug DeLong and his gang at the Stars Academy.
You have to clue me in on that.
Okay, what that is, Doug DeLong, the former lead singer of a group called Blink 52, I believe, is a self-proclaimed UFO expert. And apparently members of the inner sanctum of the government have left the government and working with him on exposing the truth about UFOs, that the government and members of a very select few within the Pentagon are responsible for, including the leaking of the video footage from the Nimitz aircraft carrier group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know much about that. I knew there's something going on there, but I'm not knowledgeable on that.
If at all, what do you think a reason would be for the government to deny the existence of extraterrestrial craft and extraterrestrials? Why would they, if they were real, deny the fact that they were here? In your opinion, this is just a hypothesis.
I don't think they possibly could. That's something the government leaks like a sieve. They couldn't keep a secret, and so I don't think there's anything there to deny. And I talked to, in fact, just this last week, when we had our Hall of Fame thing here, we had a lot of the CIA people here, and our guest speaker was Dr. Roadrunners.
What we're going to do is we're going to take our final break here, TD, because I don't want to interrupt you as you're telling the story. And Exonation, TD Barnes is our special guest, a great gentleman who has served his country, in my opinion, above and beyond the call of duty, along with the other people that he worked with at Area 51 and all the other members of the armed forces. If you'd like to find out more about TD, what he's up to these days, visit nvahof.org, and TD and I will be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Crystal Beach, Ontario, where I can honestly report there are no UFOs. We'll be back, don't go away. Exonation, TD Barnes is our special guest this hour, and if you'd like to find out more about TD, the website is nvahof.org. First of all, TD, as always, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you so much for your service.
I appreciate it.
Before we went to the final break, TD, we were talking about a group that got together at the Hall of Fame, and amongst those were members of the CIA, and I believe you were saying that one of the keynote speakers, or a speaker, was with the CIA, and that's when we had to go to our commercial break. So can you continue that?
Yeah, that was our guest speaker this year was Dr. David Robards. He's chief historian for the CIA.
Right.
And Dave and I go back a long ways. We've worked together for the last 15 years or so, and we've done presentations all over the country and talk like this. And I go back to the agency about every 2 or 3 months, and usually take a pilot back with me or some engineers or something. And we go back there, and we, you got an air branch. We go usually visit with the air branch. Just sit, go in a room and just talk. And first of all, the subject UFOs never ever comes up. I mean, no one, you just never hear it in our groups. But we talk about it, the past and the future. But that's a subject that just never comes up. And I pointedly have asked Dr. Robards different ones about the UFO thing, knowing that people ask questions about it, and they say it's just nothing there. They don't spend their day thinking about UFOs.
I'm sure they have bigger and better fish to fry.
Yeah, but that's something that never comes up in our conversations when we all get together. Just like this last week, we had people from the agency. We had people, airmen from 4 different Air Force bases were there, and just a lot of had Lockheed people. The vice president was there, and no one talks about UFOs. We talk about the planes and stuff, and but the future. We do a lot of talk about the future. But nothing there about the UFOs.
Having heard you say that, I now have a better understanding why you and the other members who were part of Annie Jacobsen's book were so upset with her when she kind of threw you all under the bus with her final chapter on ETs and what was going on with the alien connection at Area 51.
Yeah, I was there when Nightline was interrogating her about that, and she said, "Well, I had a source that told me the story," and they questioned, "You had one source?" Yeah. They said, "Well, don't you think you should have got at least 1 or 2 more opinions?" And she said, "No, I'm a reporter." All of a sudden she wasn't an author; she became a reporter. She said, "This guy told me that, so I'm going to use it." And just simple as that, just because he said it. Well, I knew the guy that told her the story, and she kept bugging him, "Give me something juicy, give me something juicy." And to get her off his back one day, he just told her, just a yarn, you might say.
Right.
And she knew it wasn't true, but because he said it, she said, "I can use it in my book." And that's exactly what she told Nightline. She said, "He said it, so I'm going to use it." And that's what she did.
But a reporter usually uses more than one source to vet a story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we just felt betrayed by her because what she's saying is that we did that. We modified kids and handicapped people, everybody out the area, and she's still saying it. It's even gotten worse when you listen to her interviews that she does now. She talks about it. She goes into detail, how we enlarged her eyes and reshaped her heads. And I mean, she's lost it.
It certainly does sound like that, Didi. I would imagine that getting together with your fellow CIA operatives and contractors, that the future must look amazing.
It does, and particularly with Lockheed. I mean, I would love to know what all they're working on now. So they got to be so far advanced. All the aerospace of what we did. To think of what we did, 50 years ago, and that was before computers, with slide rules. So
Wow.
they've got to be so advanced that we can't imagine it.
I still cannot believe, well, I believe it, but I have a hard time fathoming how the moon landing took place with the knowledge and the experience and the computer systems that they had back then. Apparently, the computer, the onboard computer on the command module, was no bigger than today. It was less powerful than today's home computers.
Yeah, oh yeah, much. And just like stuff we used on the X-15 and putting guys into outer space, we were using the World War II vintage radar, and that's exactly identical to what the Russians had that were tracking our U-2 planes. And it amazes me what we was able to do with so little back then compared to now.
How do you deal when there are people who, to this very day, believe that America did not land on the moon, that it was all part of a hoax?
That is so far out. If they only knew what all we went through. It's like with X-15. We weren't testing the X-15.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing but a workhorse to test things that we were going to use in Apollo. Just about everything that went to the moon, we flew it first in the X-15. Your hydraulic systems, just about any component they're going to use on the Apollo, it was tested with the X-15. And sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. And that's what made the program so interesting for me, because it was almost every flight was a nail biter, if you're going to work or not, that sort of thing.
It must have given you an unimaginable feeling of pride and being part of that great accomplishment that put our very first astronauts onto the lunar surface, knowing that you, T.D. Barnes, was part of that.
Yeah, when we get ready to do the MiG programs out of the area, we exploit the Soviet MiGs. Well, I went back to Dayton, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, to the Flight Dynamics Laboratory, and we were building the black boxes and stuff we were going to use to evaluate the MiGs.
Mm-hmm.
And the Apollo 1 space capsule was in the same building that I was in, and they were putting it through integrity tests. They had it in a shaker, and they shake it day and night, vibrations. And then they had a big old oven. They'd put it in, and they'd change the temperatures abruptly, go up to, very high temperatures. And just to see what all went into that program before we actually put the man on the moon, And then we were doing the lunar landers here in Nevada and, down at Edwards Air Force Base. And, the thing's real. We did it. And I can't see how anyone could believe that we did not.
I've gone over interviews that other people have had with you. I've read the manuscripts. I've read everything I could about you, TD. And this is a question that I feel compelled to ask you. Based on everything T.D. Barnes has done over the years, what is, in your opinion, the highlight of your professional career?
I think it was on the X-15 program. What we were doing on it. So, quite frankly, a special project at Area 51 was very, very boring. Actually, coming off of the NASA high range. To give you an example, back then we didn't have near all the projects you got going now.
Yeah.
And we were doing. CIA was very involved in stealth technology, and we put a prototype on the pole out there, the pylon, and look at it, and then do a printout of what the signatures, the radars saw on it, and then whoever was doing it would take it back, and we may not see them again for 2 or 3 months, and we're sitting out there waiting on them to come back. There just really wasn't a lot going on. Whereas on the X-15 program, we had a flight almost every day of something or other, either the lifting bodies, the Aerospace 70, or even the stuff out at the Area 51. We were privileged there at the tracking station I was on. It was part of what we call the Seven Sisters, and it was actually involved in what was going on out at Area 51.
Fascinating life, fascinating stories. Let our listeners know a little bit quickly about the Nevada Hall of Fame, Aerial Hall of Fame.
And we started it. We had our 10th annual event just this last week, and we were part of the Nellis Air Force Base Air Show. We had a booth out on the flight night at Nellis, and then our theme this year was the U-2. We inducted Jerry Powers.
Oh yeah.
And then we inducted two CIA U-2 pilots, and then Tony Bravacca, who was Air Force. We trained him at the area, and then we inducted into the Hall of Fame the 14 that got killed in a C-54 crash on Mount Charleston here in Nevada on the way to Area 51 for the U-2 program.
All right, I hate to do this to you, my friend. I'd love to have you back on in the near future before Christmas if you can fit it into your busy schedule so we can continue this dialogue, getting the truth out there. T.D. Barnes, thank you ever so much for being with us. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you, and once again, thank you for everything you've done, T.D.
It's my pleasure, and I wish all your listeners happy holidays.
Take care of yourself, my friend. And Exonation, please visit www.nvahof.org. My guest this hour has been T.D. Barnes. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. Don't go away.